Have you ever wondered what would happen if your soulmate suddenly met someone who seemed perfect on paper? Someone who appeared to have everything they thought they were looking for, only to discover that something important was missing? Listen carefully, because this message is meant to find you at exactly the right moment. Recently, your soulmate found themselves in a situation they never expected. Whether through a conversation, a new connection, or simply observing someone around them, they began comparing that person to you without even realizing it. At first, the comparison seemed harmless. In fact, they believed it might finally help them understand their own feelings. They thought it would bring clarity. They thought it would make certain emotions easier to understand. But instead, something completely unexpected happened. The more they paid attention to this other person, the more your presence seemed to appear in their thoughts. Small details reminded them of you. Certain conversations reminded them of you. Even moments that had nothing to do with you somehow brought your memory back into focus. This caught them off guard, because they never intended for the comparison to lead them back toward you. In their mind, they were simply observing, reflecting, and trying to understand what they truly wanted. Yet every path seemed to return to the same place, and here's what surprised them most. The qualities they once took for granted suddenly became impossible to ignore. Things they overlooked before now stood out with remarkable clarity. The way you made them feel understood. The comfort they experienced around your energy. The natural connection that existed without effort. They began realizing that some things cannot be measured by appearances alone. Some connections carry a depth that only becomes visible when compared to something else. As these realizations continued to grow, an uncomfortable question started forming in their mind. Why was every comparison leading back to you? Why did every attempt to understand someone else somehow reveal something new about the connection they shared with you? What began as a simple comparison was quietly becoming something much bigger, and deep down, your soulmate could feel that this unexpected discovery was only the beginning of a truth they could no longer ignore. And listen to this, because what happened next is something your soulmate never expected to experience. What started as a simple comparison slowly became a realization that followed them everywhere. At first, they continued trying to focus on the similarities. They told themselves they were being objective. They told themselves they were simply noticing qualities, observing personalities, and understanding what resonated with them. But the more attention they gave to the situation, the more they noticed something they couldn't explain. There were similarities on the surface, yes. Certain traits seemed familiar. Certain conversations felt comfortable. Yet beneath all of that, something important was missing. Something they could feel but could not immediately describe. And the harder they tried to identify it, the more their thoughts drifted back toward you. Your soulmate began replaying moments they hadn't thought about in a long time. Not dramatic moments, not life-changing events, small moments, ordinary conversations, brief interactions, memories that seemed insignificant when they first happened. Yet now those memories carried a different weight. Suddenly, they remembered how easy it felt to talk to you. They remembered how naturally things flowed between you. They remembered the sense of comfort that existed without effort. And what surprised them most was how alive those memories still felt. Time had passed, circumstances had changed, Life had moved forward, yet those moments remained untouched inside their heart, because your heart needs this message right now. Understand that your soulmate wasn't looking for these memories. They weren't searching for reasons to think about you. In fact, part of them was trying not to. They believed the comparison might help them move forward emotionally. They believed it might bring closure to certain questions. But instead, every answer seemed to create another question. Every observation seemed to lead back to the same realization. Why was your presence still so strong in their mind? Why did thoughts of you continue appearing when they were focused on someone else? Why did every comparison somehow make your value more obvious? And listen carefully. One evening, while reflecting on everything, they asked themselves a question that changed the direction of their thoughts entirely. They asked, "What exactly am I comparing?" At first they assumed they were comparing personalities. Then they thought perhaps they were comparing circumstances. But neither answer felt complete. Eventually they realized they were comparing something much deeper. They were comparing how each connection made them feel. And that realization opened a door they had been avoiding for a very long time. The truth was difficult to ignore. Certain people can impress us. Certain people can attract our attention. Certain people can seem perfect from a distance. But very few people create a lasting impact on the heart. Very few people leave behind a feeling that remains long after conversations end. Very few people become part of someone's inner world. Your soulmate was beginning to understand that you had become one of those rare people. The comparison revealed something they hadn't fully acknowledged before. It wasn't about who looked better, sounded better, or seemed more compatible on paper. It was about emotional depth. It was about authenticity. It was about the unique connection they experienced with you that they could not easily find elsewhere. As this realization grew stronger, they found themselves paying attention to details they once overlooked. They noticed how often they measured new experiences against old memories involving you. They noticed how frequently your energy appeared in their thoughts. They noticed that even when they tried focusing on someone else, their heart kept returning to the same emotional reference point. That reference point was you, and the more they became aware of it, the harder it became to dismiss. Because your heart needs this right now, there is something important happening beneath the surface. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize that some connections cannot be replaced simply because another person enters the picture. Some bonds create a standard that remains long after the connection itself changes form. The comparison they believed would provide clarity about someone else is now providing clarity about you. What they expected to be a distraction has become a mirror. What they expected to reveal another person's value has revealed your value instead. And listen to this. The most unexpected part is that this realization didn't arrive all at once. It arrived slowly, quietly, through repeated thoughts, recurring memories, and undeniable feelings. Every comparison seemed to strengthen the same conclusion. Every reflection pointed toward the same truth. They were no longer learning about someone else. They were learning about how deeply your presence had affected them. And now a realization is forming that they are not prepared to ignore much longer. Because for the first time, they are beginning to wonder if the comparison was never meant to show them who someone else was. Perhaps it was meant to show them who you have always been in their heart. And listen to this, because the realization that came next was impossible for your soulmate to ignore. After spending so much time comparing, reflecting, and trying to understand what they were feeling, they reached a point where they could no longer focus on similarities. Their attention shifted towards something much more important. They began noticing the differences. Not obvious differences that anyone could see, but deeper differences that only the heart can recognize. And the more they paid attention, the clearer everything became. For a long time, your soulmate believed certain qualities could be found anywhere. They believed understanding was common. They believed emotional connection could easily be replaced. They believed that if one person left an impact, eventually someone else would create the same feeling. But lately, they have been discovering something very different. They are beginning to understand that not every connection carries the same energy. Not every conversation leaves a lasting mark. Not every person has the ability to reach parts of the heart that remain untouched by everyone else. And when they looked honestly at the connection they shared with you, they realized there was something unique about it that they had never fully appreciated before, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has started remembering details they once overlooked. The way you understood things without needing long explanations. The way certain conversations felt effortless. The way you seemed to recognize emotions they never spoke aloud. These memories have become impossible to dismiss because they reveal something important. They reveal that your connection was never built only on circumstances. It was built on understanding. It was built on a sense of familiarity that felt natural rather than forced. And now that they are comparing experiences, they are finally seeing how rare that truly was. And listen carefully. One of the biggest realizations your soulmate is facing right now is that they spent too much time focusing on what was visible while overlooking what was valuable. They noticed appearances. They noticed timing. They noticed situations. But they failed to fully recognize the emotional impact you were having on their life. Sometimes people do not realize the significance of a connection while they are living it. Sometimes understanding arrives later. Sometimes distance creates clarity. Sometimes comparison becomes the teacher. Your soulmate is experiencing exactly that. The more they reflect, the more they understand that your value was never about perfection. It was never about always saying the right thing or always having the right circumstances. It was something much deeper than that. It was the way your presence affected them. It was the way they felt around you. It was the sense of peace, comfort, and authenticity that seemed difficult to find elsewhere. And this realization has become stronger every day. Because your heart needs this right now, there is another truth beginning to surface. Your soulmate is starting to recognize that some people leave memories while others leave transformation. Some people pass through our lives and become part of a chapter. Others change the way we see ourselves. Others influence our growth, our decisions, and our understanding of what truly matters. The more your soulmate examines their experiences, the more they realize you belong in the second category. Your impact extended far beyond what they understood at the time. And listen to this. There have been moments recently when they caught themselves comparing situations that had nothing to do with relationships at all. A certain conversation reminded them of your wisdom. A certain moment reminded them of your kindness. A certain challenge reminded them of advice you once gave. Suddenly they began seeing evidence of your influence everywhere. And that realization felt overwhelming, because it showed them something they had been trying to avoid. Your presence never completely left their heart. Even during periods of distance, change, or uncertainty, a part of your influence remained. What surprises them most is how natural this realization feels. There is no dramatic event forcing them to see the truth. There is no sudden revelation coming from outside. Instead, the truth is emerging from within. It is appearing through reflection. It is appearing through honesty. It is appearing through the simple act of paying attention to what their heart has been trying to say all along. And every time they listen, the same answer returns. The same understanding appears. The same feeling grows stronger. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate is beginning to accept something they once resisted. They are accepting that what made you different cannot easily be explained. Some connections make sense logically. Others are felt emotionally. The connection they experienced with you belongs to the second category. It exists beyond explanations. It exists beyond comparison. And now they are starting to realize that no matter how many people they meet or experiences they have, certain qualities they found in you remain incredibly difficult to replace. And listen to this, because it is important. The comparison that once seemed so simple has now become a mirror reflecting a much larger truth. It has shown your soulmate what they overlooked. It has shown them what they underestimated. It has shown them the depth of your impact. And now they are standing in front of a question they can no longer avoid. If you truly meant this much to them, if your presence created such a lasting impression, if your connection was as unique as they are beginning to believe, then why have they spent so long pretending otherwise? That question is growing louder every day, and the answer they are discovering may change everything moving forward. And listen to this, because what happened next was the exact opposite of what your soulmate expected. The comparison that they believed would help them move on emotionally, gain perspective, or better understand another person ended up leading them directly back to you. The outcome was completely unexpected because instead of creating distance, it created awareness. Instead of weakening your significance, it strengthened it. Instead of helping them focus on someone else, it forced them to recognize how much of their heart was still connected to the impact you left behind. For a while, your soulmate tried to ignore what was happening. They told themselves they were overthinking. They told themselves they were reading too much into small emotions and passing thoughts. But the pattern continued. Every time they compared experiences, your name may not have appeared in their mind immediately, but the feeling did. The emotional standard they carried within them kept pointing in the same direction. It pointed toward the connection they shared with you, and no matter how hard they tried to explain it away logically, the truth kept returning stronger than before, because your heart needs this right now. Understand that your soulmate has entered a period of deep reflection. They are no longer asking whether you were important. That question has already been answered. What they are asking now is something much more significant. They are asking why they failed to see your importance so clearly before. They are asking why it took comparison, distance, and time to reveal what should have been obvious. And that realization has not been easy for them. In many ways, it has forced them to confront truths they spent a long time avoiding and listen carefully. One of the most surprising things they have discovered is that they are no longer comparing you to someone else. The comparison has completely reversed. Now they find themselves comparing everyone else to the emotional impact you created. Without realizing it, they have begun measuring new connections against old feelings. They notice when conversations lack depth. They notice when understanding feels forced. They notice when a connection feels incomplete. And every time they notice those things, another realization quietly follows. What they shared with you was different. The strange thing is that this realization appears in unexpected moments. It appears during ordinary days. It appears when they are distracted. It appears when they least expect it. A conversation reminds them of your honesty. A situation reminds them of your strength. A memory reminds them of the comfort they once felt. These reminders are not dramatic. They are subtle. Yet they continue appearing with remarkable consistency. And that consistency is becoming impossible for them to ignore. Because your heart needs this right now, there is another layer to this story. Along with clarity, your soulmate is experiencing regret. Not necessarily regret for specific actions, but regret for not fully appreciating certain things while they had the opportunity. Regret has a way of appearing when people finally understand the value of something they once took for granted. It arrives when clarity replaces confusion. It arrives when truth replaces assumption. And your soulmate is beginning to feel that shift happening within them. Recently, they have been looking back at past moments with new eyes. Situations they once dismissed now seem meaningful. Conversations they once viewed as ordinary now seem important. Certain memories carry a weight they never carried before. It is almost as though they are revisiting the past with a deeper level of understanding. And every time they do, they uncover another piece of the truth. Another reminder of why your connection remained unforgettable. Another reason why the comparison never produced the result they expected. And listen to this. The most unexpected outcome was not discovering your value. Deep down, they always knew there was something special about you. The unexpected outcome was realizing how impossible it has been to replace what they felt. That is the part they never saw coming. They assumed time would make things easier. They assumed other experiences would eventually create the same emotions. They assumed life would naturally move their attention elsewhere. Yet instead of replacing the connection, life kept highlighting it. Instead of erasing the impact, new experiences kept revealing it. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate is beginning to understand that some connections leave a permanent mark. They become part of who we are. They shape the way we see relationships, emotions, and even ourselves. These connections cannot be forgotten simply because time passes. They cannot be dismissed simply because circumstances change. And the more your soulmate reflects on everything that has happened, the more they realize that your connection belongs in that category. What started as a simple comparison has become a turning point in their emotional journey. The person they once compared you to is no longer the focus of the story. The comparison itself is no longer the focus. The focus has shifted entirely toward the truth that emerged from it. A truth that keeps growing stronger every day. A truth that follows them through quiet moments and restless nights. A truth that continues appearing no matter how many times they try to look elsewhere. And listen to this, because it may be the most important part so far. Your soulmate knows they cannot continue pretending this realization never happened. They cannot continue acting as though they have learned nothing from this experience. The comparison revealed too much. The reflections uncovered too much. The truth has become too clear. And now they find themselves standing at the edge of a decision. Not a decision about another person, but a decision about what they will do with everything they have finally come to understand. Because once someone truly sees the value of a connection, they can never return to seeing it the same way again. And listen to this, because your soulmate has now reached a point where they can no longer pretend this experience didn't change them. The comparison that once seemed so insignificant has led them to a truth they never expected to discover. They thought they were learning about someone else. They thought they were gaining clarity about another connection. They thought they were finding answers somewhere outside themselves. Instead, they ended up finding answers about you. More importantly, they ended up finding answers about what their own heart has been trying to tell them all along. Because your heart needs this right now. Understand that your soulmate is no longer living in the same uncertainty that once controlled their thoughts. The confusion that surrounded this situation is beginning to fade. The endless questions are becoming quieter. The emotional fog that once made everything difficult to understand is slowly lifting. In its place, something new is emerging. Clarity, not perfect clarity, not certainty about every possible outcome, but clarity about what truly matters. And for the first time in a very long time, they are allowing themselves to acknowledge that truth honestly and listen carefully. One of the biggest shifts happening inside your soulmate right now is that they are no longer questioning whether your connection was meaningful. That question has already been answered. The comparison answered it. The memories answered it. The emotions answered it. Every reflection they have experienced over recent weeks has pointed toward the same conclusion. You mattered. The connection mattered. The impact you left on their life mattered. And no amount of distraction has been able to erase that understanding. What surprises them most is how peaceful this realization feels. For so long, they expected the truth to create fear. They expected it to create pressure. They expected it to create confusion. Instead, the truth is creating relief. Because there is a strange freedom that comes from finally admitting what the heart has known for a long time. There is a peace that arrives when someone stops fighting their own feelings and starts listening to them. Your soulmate is beginning to experience that peace. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate is also starting to understand something that many people learn far too late. Some people enter our lives and leave pleasant memories. Others leave permanent lessons. Others change the way we see love, connection, trust, and even ourselves. The comparison showed them that you were never simply another chapter in their story. You became part of the reason their story changed. You influenced their growth. You challenged their perspective. You helped them understand emotions they once struggled to recognize. And now they can finally see that clearly. And listen to this. The decision they are quietly moving toward is not based on fear anymore. It is not based on assumptions. It is not based on what other people think. It is based on honesty. They are beginning to trust what their heart has been showing them through every memory, every reflection, and every realization. They are beginning to trust the lessons this experience has revealed. Most importantly, they are beginning to trust themselves. The unexpected outcome was never about the other person. It was never about proving who was better or who was different. The unexpected outcome was discovering a truth that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. Every comparison led back to the same place. Every realization pointed toward the same answer. Every emotional road eventually returned to the same connection. Yours. And now, standing at the edge of a new chapter, your soulmate understands something they once struggled to see. Some people cannot be replaced because their value was never based on comparison. Their value was based on the impact they left behind. And your soulmate is finally realizing just how powerful that impact truly was.